Hi, I'm Jay from Real Street Performance. Today we're working on something a little bit different. This is a 900cc 3-cylinder engine out of a CanAm Maverick Turbo RR. Makes just under 200 horsepower stock, and this particular one is currently making over 400 horsepower. This is a CVT transmission, so the engine is either idling, staged, or spending time between 9 and 10,000 RPM with over 40 PSI of boost. The oil looks a little bit milkshaky, so we know that it's probably lifted the head, maybe torn some bearings up in the process. These little engines run hard, very powerful, but small parts doing a lot of work. So we're gonna take it apart today and see what's going on. Little milkshaked oil there. So this engine has a huge clutch assembly that mounts to the nose of the crankshaft, and the nose of the crankshaft looks pretty terrible. It's a tapered cone that creates an interference fit, so there's not a keyway, but you can see that the clutch is able to turn on the crankshaft itself. So there's a lot of material that's been exchanged on the nose of the crankshaft. There needs to be a proper solution for that, because that's just bad business, the way that this is wearing on itself. Makes it extremely difficult to take the clutch off because it just fuses basically as it turns. During the disassembly, you have a couple of tools you'll need. There's a tool that holds the camshafts in position and a tool that holds the crankshaft in position, and then it's safe to take the timing chain off. One of the guides just slides right up out of the crankcase, and the other one you have to remove a plug to remove the guide pin, and then that other guide just flops around in there and allows you to get the cams free. But we can start working to get the head off now. Once we get those cams out of the way. These are factory DLC coated buckets. I'm a big fan of DLC coating when it comes to valvetrain components. This particular engine, again, goes from an idle speed to a staging speed to right between 9 and 10,000 RPM, and it just sits there during the run. So it's not an easy place for valvetrain to live. This particular engine has BC camshafts and valve springs, but the buckets look really nice. The oil does not look very nice, so I suppose we are going to get into some damage in the bottom end, but for now we can keep pecking at it. Some gas leak present on the gasket. So if you look at the cylinders here, 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 and it's accompanied on the gasket where there's combustion leaking past the gasket. What's likely in a case like this is you have a component that's not stressed, and then it goes from not stressed to under a lot of stress, and it actually has like a period of flex where it will balloon and then get a handle on itself. So it probably, if you had a coolant pressure sensor on it, you could probably watch it lift the head when it first goes up under load, and then it settles back down. So it could always be lifting the head based off of the stress, the way that the engine goes under stress. It's like if you go from 0 boost to 40 pounds of boost in half a second, you know, you're dealing with this expansion of stress, and it will swell and then it will come back together. And used to see that with cars like high level manual transmission cars that you go from stage boost to race boost, where they were getting 65, 70 PSI right out of the gate, letting the clutch manage the traction. You could lift the head and the head will settle back down. But it's not a blown head gasket, but it is definitely lifting the head. But when you start doing the math on horsepower per inch, these are very impressive little engines. This is an oil cooler that's integrated onto the engine. If there is bearing damage in the engine, this will be thrown away and not be replaced. It's unfortunately a common mistake to have bearing damage in an engine, repair the engine, then put the old oil cooler back on. It just puts all the bad stuff right back into the engine. So I wouldn't recommend spending time flushing it, just replace the oil cooler. Oh, there's so much soupy milkshake. One of the things that's neat about this engine is it's integrated into one component. So the crankshaft drives what would be the accessories on one side of the engine, and it just has an output shaft on the other side of the engine. So your oil pump, water pump, you know, what functions as an alternator here with the stator, all that starter motor drive, it's all in one area, where when you think about an engine that has such a small footprint, but yet can output 200, 300, 400 horsepower, it's pretty neat when you think about maybe putting it in a different chassis, whether it's a go-kart or something you've built at home. Like this small power head is highly effective, and it doesn't weigh a lot. And like I said, it's all one component when it's together. So if you can get it in a cart, it has an output shaft available that, unlike a regular car engine, would have a bell housing, and that bell housing is configured for a certain transmission. This thing is just an output shaft. So you really have fairly endless capacity to do with a small, high output turbocharged engine like this. The nose of this crankshaft, or tail, depending on how you're looking at it, is pretty beat up too. So there's a lot of damage and vibration going on the engine. But again, you know, it's over 400 horsepower out of 900 cc's, so it's definitely working a lot. Without looking further in, we'd already planned on replacing the crankshaft. And here's that gear drive, like the accessories I was talking about. So you have your oil pump, you have these idlers, they're plastic and they do break. So if you look at some of these gears, they're pretty heavily damaged, which is something that we'd seen before on the higher output engines. But again, it's all an integrated component. So there were some guys that were making some steel gears or metal, some sort of metal composite gear, and they weren't living very well. So I would say that the gears are a service item at this point on an engine like this. Probably not in stock form, but when you modify it, things change. So here's some of the drive sprockets we were talking about earlier. All this material here is just in the sump, but these are just pieces of those pulleys that are on the engine. The gears just wear out. These are little filters, pre-oil pump filters here, to keep things like that from entering the oil pump and locking it up. Here's where you can kind of start gaining an appreciation for the size of these components. So there's the piston and rod. And so you have some contrast. There is K-Series Honda piston and rod. So you're talking about really, really small components. But again, you know, over 400 horsepower, over 9,000 RPM. Doesn't look like the piston's being overheated, but there's definitely some scuffing present. Here's a little something for you guys that get worked up about ring gaps. So you'll put the pistons in the engine and the rings in some orientation, service manual, what your buddy told you, whatever. But they move while they're in the engine. So if you look at this one here, it's basically lined up. Whereas when they put them together, I'm sure they weren't lined up, but they turn over time. But the point is the gaps can be lined up and nothing terribly catastrophic or weird happens. It's happening all the time. So we've taken the pistons and pins apart, and it looks like what's going on is pretty minimal at best. It's a very small piston. I mean, we're talking the 74 millimeter bore, really lightweight. There's a 200 wall pin, and there's just a tiny bit of pin flex going on that you can see on the outsides of the part, which is pretty common when you're running stuff hard because the parts are working together to keep shape. So the piston pin is strong, it's trying to support the piston. Piston is strong, trying to support the pin, and hopefully things keep shape well enough for oil to stay in between those components. And what happens over time on high stress engines is the edges of the pin can deflect the oil or pierce through the wedge of oil that's trying to separate them, and then the parts touch down, and you can just see a little bit of that going on. So when I first took the cylinder head off, a part of the head gasket kind of caught my eye as having some gas trace. So some combustion was able to leak out of the cylinder, and got the engine the rest of the way apart and go back to looking at the deck, and you can see that there's some areas of the copper O-ring that are not compressed at all, and what we have is a stacking tolerance. So the actual deck of the block is one height. The deck of the sleeve is 3 to 4 thousandths higher than the deck of the block. The deck of the compressed O-ring is 4 thousandths higher than the sleeve, and then the uncompressed O-ring is 9 thousandths higher than the sleeve. So you quickly stack up a lot of interference where a multi-layer head gasket can cover for 3 or 4 thousandths of deflection. It cannot cover for what was going on here. Someone did a step, but they missed the execution. So we're gonna have to peel that O-ring out of the block, careful not to chip the sleeves around the O-ring. We're gonna deck the block. We're gonna recut the O-ring groove, we're gonna deck the cylinder head and put it back together. But the majority of the problem was that milkshaky mess that you saw during the disassembly of the engine. I am not a real big fan of what's happening with the pistons. There's some marks on the pistons that make me believe that they're running the engine cold. The piston wall clearance is already very big. It's around 7 thousandths of an inch on a 74 millimeter bore. We're gonna tighten that up a little bit with some abradable coating, and we are going to find a ring set that has a little bit better fitment, because this particular ring set had 38 thousandths of an inch of ring gap, which is a bit excessive. Now, the ring gap is big, the piston wall clearance is big because the bores are big. The engine's been likely honed a couple times during servicing, and they just went ahead and put it back together with the same 74 millimeter piston instead of finding a correctly oversized piston. So we're gonna make up a little bit of that difference with an abradable coating. That'll give these guys a little bit of insurance if they are running the engine cold, some more lubricity while stabilizing the piston to help the ring set work better. But the majority of our problem here is in this head gasket approach. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know this isn't a typical engine for the Real Street channel, but these engines are high RPM, high boost. I mean, they sound extremely angry when they're on the pipe. It sounds like an angry wasp nest is the best way it's been put to me. And I don't think that's far off. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you next time.